I'm Kimberly Spencer. I'm the founder of crownyourself.com and the CEO of Communication Queens. And I am a born entrepreneur, pretty much. The power of ownership, like truly the power of ownership is not blame. It was stories that saved me from bulimia. When I first started teaching Pilates, I was still bulimic.
Welcome, everyone, to the One Moment Show. Listen, I am your boy and your co host, Kevin. We're here bringing you another amazing, phenomenal episode. We have an amazing young lady, phenomenal young lady. Now, she gets the P word too. Okay. Not everybody gets the P word, a few people do. She gets the P word, right? So, listen, we hope that you are having an amazing time, an amazing day, wherever you might be. We are actually doing this show from San Antonio, Texas. Well, I'm hosting from San Antonio, Texas. She is right up the road from me. It's pretty interesting. This is going to be awesome. Now, this is my first time in San Antonio. Looking forward to hopefully coming back within a month. Fingers crossed, right? So, that being said, on our show, we talk about mental health, substance use, suicide prevention. We talk about everything, right? So if at any time during any of our shows you are triggered, please utilize resources 988, 911, local hospitals, local crisis centers. And if you are overseas, Ukraine, Russia, China, the UK, Rome, doesn't matter, Spain, doesn't matter where you are, Australia, Africa, wherever, utilize your local resources. I don't know I don't know what the numbers are over there, but utilize your resources. So let's jump into today's topics because we got a lot we have to cover, as always. Now, that being said, we have an amazing young lady on, and I'm looking forward to hearing her and talking to her. Now, we always start at point A and we might end up at point P, Q, R, Z, B, C. It doesn't matter. We never go ever in a particular order. So let's hear it. How are you doing today, ma'am? Tell us a little bit about yourself. I was reading over your profile. Now, our listeners might know you, they might not. So tell us a little bit about who you are and and let's jump into today's conversation.
Yeah, so I'm Kimberly Spencer. I'm the founder of crownyourself.com and the CEO of Communication Queens. And I am a born entrepreneur, pretty much. Like I was raised by second generation entrepreneur. I got to be raised by two parents who believed in doing things differently, which definitely created some challenges along the way because I saw my parents grow a business from zero to $1 million annual revenue while my dad was a highly functioning alcoholic and addict for 30 years. And I saw what they built and I saw what I could build, and I career hopped a bit, going from screenwriter to Pilates instructor to e-commerce business owner to pivoting into starting my Crown Yourself coaching company, because truly when we shift our mindset and who we think we are, who we believe we are, we shift our entire world. I mean, that was the basis for how I healed myself from a decade-long eating disorder, how I have navigated postpartum depression multiple times and postpartum anxiety over the course of having three beautiful children, and the challenges, loopholes, and jumps along the way. So I'm just honored to be here with you, Kevin, and excited to share in this one moment.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's a lot. That is like what I heard was somebody who grew up damaged, right? And I say damaged, like I don't mean like you're damaged, but you grew up a lot of stuff on your plate, and then it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and be very successful, and so I don't have to look at all of that stuff, right? Or at least I can heal from it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is in every business success or career success I've had, there was a point of healing. Like it came from healing through it, not from just trying to avoid it or escape it. And I see that, I mean, I see escapism as a very very easy path for high achievers. I know I definitely did when I was younger. I thought maybe if I was smart enough or skinny enough or got enough good grades, then I could change somebody else's behavior, mainly my dad's. But we the first place that change actually has to start is with us. And for me, my medium of control growing up was the only way that I knew how, which was through controlling what I ate and put in my body, and eventually turned into a pretty serious eating disorder for 10 years. But through the healing process of learning about nervous system regulation and becoming a certified Pilates instructor and leaning into that like deep internal voice and that intuitive compass that I think we all have, and learning to listen to that rather than the external world or the sometimes the just nonsense mind chatter of the crappy inner critic that lives inside all of our heads. Just because you may have healed or worked through it doesn't mean that voice always turns off. It just gets softer and quieter. Or and you learn how to process it and just tell it to go politely F off when necessary. But that the I mean, it was I think the biggest thing was the adversity. I realized when I was pregnant with my second son, we got stranded abroad in Australia during COVID. We were those Americans who got stuck abroad. And I ended up losing my dad, my aunt, my nana, and 2 family friends within 1 year. My dad was probably the most impactful of the 2. Um, the second one was my family friend who passed away at 28 from a fentanyl overdose, so that was pretty hard and shocking because that wasn't unexpected. My aunt, we kind of saw coming. My nana, we saw coming, through cancer and then a broken heart. Um, but my dad was surprising, and my dad was such a heavy influence on my life. And there I was sitting on the couch pregnant with my second son and grieving my dad. And the one thing I can't reach for is like a glass of wine to just like take an edge off or something like that. And I'm like, I'm just feeling through this moment, sitting on the couch, just fully feeling what grief is. And it gave me such an insight of compassion because the years that were the most challenging in my childhood, the years where there was every form of abuse in my childhood, was in between the years that my dad lost his mom and lost his father who he had complex relationships with, and that was his only source of coping. In essence, he didn't know how to regulate his nervous system. He didn't know to seek out therapy. He didn't know to do these other access other tools and other resources that we have available now. And I think a lot of that came down to generational pride as well, quite frankly, and that baby boomer of like just, rub some dirt in it, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, don't go to someone don't talk to someone about how you need help or what you're going on mentally, or you don't talk about your emotions, just shove it down. And it was really interesting giving birth to my second son about 6 months after my father passed, because he's my emotional one. He's just this absolute love, and I'm so grateful to be his mom and to be stewarding him through this lifetime, because I see how had he been born just 70 years prior, all of the beauty of what makes him unique and special and so connected and so loving would have been trampled, and he would have been told to hide his big feelings and hide his emotions and man up and all that. And I think that's what I said in my TED talk that I gave about my dad. That was the programming that he was living with that literally killed him, because he was trying to put on a strong face and he wasn't showing that he was as sick as he was. And so by the time he went into the hospital, he was immediately put on a ventilator and like that, because he tried to mask his symptoms to be the strong one, to be the man. And I think that when we can allow ourselves to have vulnerability, to admit where we're at, and that's why I think stories are so powerful. Like I was saying before, hit record, was I do personally believe stories save lives. It was stories that saved me from bulimia. When I first started teaching Pilates, I was still bulimic. I was trying to find a way to have a new path to love my body. I'd found this medium called Pilates that was actually a form of exercise where I not only saw results, but I got to feel good in my body, which was very hard for a long time. And then I got to teach and use it to serve and share that knowledge with others. But as I'm sharing it with others, I'm also hearing their stories. And as I'm teaching 10 hours a day, training people privately, I get to hear their stories and I hear their belief systems and I hear how they think about things. And that was such a gift at that time because I got to hear about how people would think about their bodies or talk about their bodies or talk about their relationships. And suddenly things that I had thought were just, oh, that's normal. Like that, those what I call plagiarized programming just got stripped away.
Wow. No, I mean, it's, and I don't think a lot of people really understand how society really impacts us and, personally,
Uh-huh.
how it impacts our life decisions, so many times, I had crossed into Texas state line yesterday morning and I made a comment about, about living authentically and living for ourselves and being who we are, living authentically, right? And even my own personal journey as kind of I'm not going to say similar to yours by any means, but like even growing up, and I wanted to do certain things, and every step of the way, oh, you're not going to be able to do this.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh, hey, I want to do this. That's not going to be happening for you. You don't need to do this, right? Like you're not built for this type of stuff. And it's like society's telling me one thing, and it's like, yeah, hold my beer, watch this type stuff, and I never let society hold me down anymore. Like when I had that change of perception, I never allowed that to happen anymore. And I still don't. And so I share that because you shared a lot that as far as like the bulimia piece. And I think that's important to really talk about too, because bulimia and eating disorders, something we need to talk about more, something that is, um, I think a lot of stigma, a lot of myths, a lot of knowledge needs to be talked about there, right? Or
Mhm.
shared. So about how old were you when you started struggling with some of that bulimia?
Yeah, I was 9 years old. My dream was to be a professional dancer, and I remember the moment I walked in and um I walked into my dance class and I started to have a little bit of, just tummy, 9, 10 years old is like a weird age for girls. And my dance teacher goes, you might want to stop eating around 4. And I was like, that sounds weird. Like, I have schoolwork, I have other things. And it just was one of those pieces of advice like, that's interesting. I but I kind of took it, but I didn't. And then it wasn't until I was about 11, I was really trying to navigate um life, middle school. I honestly wouldn't wish middle school hell on any child. and and being able to experience and cope and also navigating the chaos of growing up with an addict, I my mom was always into supplements and I thought, well, maybe I'll just take some supplements or maybe I'll do diets because that was the thing. Whenever my dad would try to get sober, he would always go to diet and he would always default to that of controlling his body. So there was always something he needed to control. So I modeled exactly what he was doing, just in my own way. And so I took a handful of supplements and one got stuck in my throat. And suddenly um, I I threw it up and that along with my lunch because I hate that feeling of getting a supplement stuck in your throat. And that was when I felt like this sudden sense of peace of like, oh, I felt like I had agency. I felt like I had control. I felt like I had um, some semblance of peace. It wasn't actual peace. It was just calm that I was feeling, but it was a calm in my nervous system from the panic of like something was choking and in there. And then it progressed to the point where when I was 16 years old, like, and my friends would joke about, like, I would skip lunch, or like I would just have a Diet Coke for lunch, and I haven't touched a soda in ages, but like those would be the things that I would do weird eating things to try to control my weight. And mind you, I'm also a millennial, so I'm growing up in like that weird 90s diet culture of like, just give me a tea bag and a lemon leaf, and that's my dinner.
Right.
Um So that like it was a very weird diet culture to be in, and I had this perception, and I was an early developer as a young woman. So I had curves at a young age, and I was outed by and like judged by some of my girlfriends because boys would notice me a little bit more than they were because I suddenly had boobs and a butt. And that was something that was hard for me to take. And so I thought, oh well, maybe so dysmorphia, body dysmorphia started first. Or I thought, well, maybe I just need to like hide this. Maybe I just need to, if I'm skinny, maybe I just need to like lose this extra stuff that now I've developed and stop becoming this woman that scared me. And then the when I was 16, I was regularly throwing up my food, and I came out to my parents and I told them, and I said, you know, I do this sometimes. And my mom was shocked and horrified, and my dad goes, "Oh yeah, sometimes I do that too." God bless him.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I can't. Oh, man.
I mean, to say that, and in many ways, like I see it now as a parent so often. I think God gives us the children that we need to like highlight the reflections of our own selves and our own shadows and things like that. I see it in my eldest son all the time. I'm like, oh, that's me. that's it. That's me. That response is me. But when that happened and when I shared that with my parents, I remember because it was one of the few times we actually had dinner as a family, like actually sitting at a table and talking. And I went upstairs to go to my room, and my but I had a pit stop along the way, which was to go to the bathroom and throw up my food. And as I'm there, like about to like kneel in front of the toilet, I hear this bam, 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 bounding up the stairs. And it's my mom, like a tiger, like a ferocious mama bear coming, and she tackles me to the ground. And I am screaming and I'm in a rage, and I'm just like so angry that she would stop me from doing this. And she said, "Kim," ended up sitting on me, and I was screaming at her and I was trying to hit her, and she sat on me and she said, "Kim, I love you too much to let you kill yourself." And that was the first time I had the awareness that an eating disorder is a slow form of suicide. And it was also in that moment that I realized I didn't wanna die, but I also didn't know how to live, and I didn't know how to live healthily, and I didn't know how to love my body. And so I started on a quest really at 16 looking for ways to love my body. Now, initially, that started with like, okay, well, maybe I try going vegetarian, and maybe I try going vegan. Then I was vegan for 6 years. And that worked for a little bit until it didn't, until I was so exhausted and anemic that like I couldn't function without like an entire carafe of coffee. Um, and that was when, thankfully, listening to the stories of my Pilates clients, one of my clients suggested go gluten free, cut out gluten, because I shifted from being in control mode to being in experimentation mode. And once I started exploring and allowing myself to be curious to the opportunities that God source, the universe would provide for me or put in front of me, as soon as I started to realize I was manifesting quite quick. As soon as I said, like, I would go to the gym and I'd be like, okay, I think working out is probably good for me, but I don't know what to do. And I couldn't run a mile to save my life because I was so asthmatic. I was an exercise induced asthmatic. I couldn't run a mile. And so I would try going to the gym, and I didn't know what to do. And then just as soon as I'm like, okay, I don't know how to do this gym thing, working out on like, what do you lit? Like, what do you do? Am I doing this right? I don't know. I would have a friend come in and say, "Can I teach you private Pilates lessons?" And I'm like, "Oh." okay. And then I would have like another friend offer a book, or and then once I started teaching Pilates, then I would have a client say like, "Oh, maybe you should try. Like, have you heard of this book, or have you heard of this thing, or have you heard of what really got me was Eat Right for Your blood type." And suddenly I realized, oh my gosh, the whole reason why I'm anemic was I wasn't eating right for my blood type as a type O. Didn't have any red meat. And, like, the only thing I craved, Kevin, for 6 years of vegan was a steak. Like, and so I went to In-N-Out and I got a protein burger, and I felt like life had come back into my body within minutes. And I had started to listen to those micro feelings of listening to that inner voice, and also operating from, how do I wanna feel? Like, obviously what I'm doing, like, it's not about my body, it's not about the number on a scale. How do I actually wanna feel? And I realized how I didn't wanna feel was hyper controlled, obsessive, at the expense of my impulses. I didn't wanna feel like I had no agency. I wanted to feel good. I wanted to feel vibrant. I wanted to feel alive and beautiful. And so I started on a path chasing the feeling, not necessarily chasing the goal. I checked my scale. I didn't step on a scale for like 5 years. And I only focused on, how can I make my body feel as good as I wanted it to feel? Not from a space of like avoidant pleasure, but from a place of like, how can I truly love myself into feeling good about myself?
No, I think that's important. You know, and this is my issue with when we talk about bulimia and eating disorders. And it's interesting because I just had somebody on here a couple weeks ago. We were talking about anorexia and eating disorders and stuff like that. And it's sad. Well, it's interesting and sad because you talk about how society tells us that we need to be a certain way. Whether if you're a dude, right? Like you have to have arms this big, you got to have the chest, you got to have the
Mhm.
six pack, you got to be like a Arnold uh, dude or whatever his name, how to pronounce it. I ain't gonna try to pronounce his last name. And if you're a woman, then you have to be 100 and whatever, however many pounds. Your waist has to be this
Mhm.
fat or thick or thin or whatever. I don't even know whatever you want, however you want to define it. And you have to have this size, upper chest. Like you got to wear these types of clothes. You got to wear this type of jewelry. You got to talk like this. Society tells us all these things, and yet, like, I love like some of your old theorists, right, who said that we strive to live up to what society says, right? And yet the problem that we have is we're going mentally crazy, right? Like we're going down this path of insanity.
Mhm.
And it's sad because we're doing the same thing over and over again, not expecting different results, and we're not living a life of genuine authenticity. Like, it is truly sad, um, because it's one of those things like, another thing, right? Like, another example, because you sharing, about many different things, and when we think about, living authentically, I mean, there's so many things, like, when I was doing a cross country tour to Seattle, I had many people telling me, "Oh, well, you are crazy for sleeping in the car. Just spend you some money and get your hotel room." And I'm like, "Well, dude, it's only me. I can sleep in a car, right? Like, it's only me. I can sleep in the back seat or my truck, whatever, right? Like, it is what it is." Uh, and so and then when I was coming to Texas, the same people were like, "Dude, please do not sleep in your car. Get you a hotel room. It looks bad for you if you're sleeping in your car." Says who? You think I'm in a manic state of being because I'm sleeping in a car? It's free. It's my money. Are you gonna pay for me to get a but society is telling us that we have to do these uh, y like, why am I living up to what society says, right? Oh, you can be and it's sad because society said, back in the 20s or early 1900s when Ford, right, when we had the first Ford Model Ts, you can buy any color Ford that you want as long as it's black, right? And society tells us today that, oh, well, you can be anything you want to be as long as it's this.
Mhm.
And how, this is my question because you shared so much about the bulimia and your experience, and I appreciate that. My question to you is how do we break free, meaning you, and maybe you can share your experience, right? How do we start breaking free of what we're telling ourselves, this internal voice, and what society is telling us? How do we break free from this so that we can live authentically and be ourselves, right? Love ourselves,
Mhm.
right? And and the reason I say that, the reason I'm asking you this, let me preface this, right? Because and I do have permission to share this story, not any names, because I have a a friend of mine, absolutely amazing young lady. I you know, I she knows I tell her this, right? But she's gorgeous. She's probably a little bit smaller than me. She has told me many times where she wants to lose weight, lose weight, lose weight, lose weight. I know various minute details over the reasoning of losing weight. Some of it I do credit, hey, that's perfectly illegitimate ideal. But there's other things too in there that I'm like, mm, really? And I do nothing. I do my best to be supportive, only
Mhm.
supportive, of course. And so whatever her decision is, like, go ahead, absolutely. But it's still like, even with me saying, "Hey, you are beautiful as you are, right? You're an amazing young lady, you're intelligent, like, you're beautiful as you are." Those comments a lot of times don't ring true for people,
Mhm.
right? So that's why I'm asking, right? And I'm sharing that because I'm sure you've heard it too, and it never broke free. It never broke the ice, right? So, what did it take for you to start breaking that bridge into authenticity of being, I love myself, you are beautiful as you are. I am able to be centered with self regardless of circumstances. What does that look like?
It was definitely a process with your friend when you give her a compliment like that, does she deflect it?
She's probably going to kill me for saying this, but potentially.
Does she, like, downplay it of like, "Oh, maybe if I lose 5 pounds," or like, "Oh, this is an old shirt," or like something like that? 'Cause I used to personally hate compliments.
Kinda, sorta, not really. So, and
Mhm.
it's the same now, there is no eating disorder here, but I'm just using this as an example.
There's shades of eating disorders, like, there's shades of, body dysmorphia, comparisоnism, all of those are shades of our own egos, getting in
100%.
the way, and we wanna be right? That's, like, the point of the ego, it wants to be right, and it's gonna be right about, like, how great we are, it's also gonna be right about how horrible and how we're not enough and how we don't deserve it, um, and so it's this constant swinging pendulum, and what I didn't realize early on that I had to learn was first the power of reception, of receiving, especially as someone who is sexually abused. That's very hard for a woman to receive because the energy of sexual abuse is you suddenly protect yourself. You don't want to
Mm,
receive. Like there's a guard up from receiving. However, in like the law of polarity, that the dynamics that we have the masculine is penetrating energy, and we both have, this is not gendered, we both have masculine energy and feminine energy, and the feminine is receptive, and there's so much power in the feminine in being able to receive more money, receive more love, receive more joy. But if you shut down that reception for whatever reason, that's it's like turning off the Wi-Fi in essence, and suddenly being like, "Why doesn't my computer work?" Because because you turned off the Wi-Fi, so you're
right,
not gonna
no,
be getting onto
100%.
the things that you wanna do, but you can't be banging on the hardware, it's not a hardware thing, it's a software problem. And the software is our subconscious mind. The software is all the programming that's gone into play. I mean, studies show that 95% of our programming is complete by the time that we're age 7. That's during that imprint period. So whatever you experienced, saw, picked up, didn't, that or distorted, deleted, or generalized in order to survive, in order to get what you want in life, um, that's the programming that you're dealing with as you learn to open up and as you navigate loving yourself more and as you navigate trusting yourself more and backing yourself. And it can be a challenge, especially if you grew up with whether it's controlling parents or a belief in controlling parents. I mean, one of the most liberating moments of my life was by senior year. I was so depressed. I every day I was going to school crying, and I was a semester away from graduating. I was the chronic high achiever, had to get straight A's in multiple AP and honors classes, taking college courses simultaneously at one of the toughest schools in the state of California. And I was pulling my hair out, and like I had so much pressure on myself. And I remember my mom pulled me into the parking lot to drop me off at school, and I was sobbing, just absolutely sobbing. And she said, "Kim, you don't have to do this." And I was like, "What?" And she said, "You don't have, like, we can end this right now." She goes, "I trust that you're going to be successful no matter what you do. You have hustle and drive, and you're gonna be successful. High school, you don't need to do that. You don't need to finish it. You don't need to be doing all of these advanced courses and things that you're never really gonna be studying beyond." And that moment was the moment where I realized the only person putting pressure on myself to perform was me. And when we look at, yes, society has expectations and belief systems, but it's always reflecting us internally. I give this feedback to my clients a lot because one of my clients' number one fears is fear of judgment, especially as they're going out, getting more visible, going on podcasts, getting featured in major news things. Like they're getting personally more visible. And there can be a fear of rejection and judgment. And I tell them, I said, the only reason you fear rejection and judgment is because you think that the judgment's going to be true. So if I said, "That's an ugly pink shirt you're wearing, Kevin," you'd be like, "That's dumb. This is not pink." Like, but if I gave some sort of an insult that to you there was actually truth to it, that's where it would sting. Because society is constantly like, if there's something that's triggering us outside of ourselves, it means that there's still something inside that's coming up for the potential for healing. One of the prime directives of the subconscious mind is that it represses and hides events from us until we're ready to process them. I wasn't ready to process this childhood sexual abuse I experienced um, until I was 17 years old. It brought it up at such a funky, weird time, like right as I'm about to leave my parents' house and go off to college and all the things. And that's when my subconscious mind was like, "Hey, I think you're ready to heal this before you say goodbye to your family home." And I was like, "Oh, shit." Okay, fine. But and it comes up in those times and in those seasons. But then there's also when it's like, "No, I'm not ready to deal with it." And so you can shut it off and say, "No, no, 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 not we're not processing this." Or you can go through the eye of the needle, go through the eye of the hurricane and look at the shadows, um, what Carl Jung called the shadow side, and look at it straight and square in the face. And really, that was what I did in the healing process of bulimia. Was every trigger, every fear around food, every obsession that I would suddenly feel, I would allow myself to just be with the feelings and look at what was behind it. Um, and then by acknowledging it, I would then give myself permission to not feel the guilt and shame that would then cause me to purge and create self-abuse. I I would stare at the monster in the face and say, "Okay, well," like, for a while when I, moved out, I didn't have any desserts or anything, any chocolate, any desserts in my apartment. Couldn't have it. I just was like, "Better to live without it." Like, if I want it, I can go to the store, I can grab it, I can come back, I can enjoy it, but for right now, I don't need the constant temptation of having it always around for the fear of it, of binging and purging. So I eliminated it for a while, and I then gave myself the permission to say, like, if I wanted to go get it, I could go get it. But before I would go get it, I would allow myself to sit and say, like, what is this impulse that's driving this need to like down an entire pint of ice cream? Or like, what is this? Like, what am I actually feeling? And I would allow myself to ask myself a series of questions of, what am I trying to escape? What am I trying to avoid? What feelings came up during the day? What do I know that I'm not allowing myself to fully see? And I would start to ask myself these questions, thus allowing the shadow to be seen. And then if I still wanted the freaking ice cream, I'd go to the store and get the freaking ice cream. But then I wouldn't have it with the side of shame. And it was a side of it was shame and the negative emotions of guilt and shame that were shrouding me from actually even having enjoyment in the pleasure of enjoying something like ice cream. Now we have it in our fridge, not a bother, not a worry. It doesn't matter. Like, we have a whole chocolate like cabinet, and I'm like, okay, if I want some, I'll have it. If I don't, I don't. But I took away its power over me. And I think that the biggest thing is that we can move from is when we realize that we're conscious creators of our own reality. And there's a theory, it was presented in the 1960s called the drama triangle. And we are in the space of either the 3 points of the triangle, if you picture it, there's the victim who's constantly blaming others. It's everybody else's fault. I have to do this. I'm at the effect of X, Y, and Z, always having to be in the default position, always at effect. So you're never the cause of anything, you're always at the effect. Then you have the villain side. And for most of my fellow high achievers, we abhor being in the victim seat. So we really want to not be there. So we instead put ourselves in the victim role and we take on all the responsibility and then some, saying, oh, yeah, well, we're just the bad guy. We must be broken. We must be damaged. We must be, and it becomes an identity thing of being the villain, the bad guy. And then there's the third role, which is the hero and the savior. And the hero is typically the enabler, the one who will swoop in, save the day, rescue the victim, punch out the villain, and that's that's the hero's job. But it doesn't keep them out of the drama triangle. And the greatest way is when you can think of the drama triangle flipping like you would an hourglass, and the victim gets to become the creator. When you realize that you're a conscious creator co-creating with the universe, and how you experience the world, and when something triggers you and you say, "Okay, well, what's that there to teach me? Okay, that really bothered me. What's that there to teach me?" Like, just the other day, my kid did something that just bothered me, and I was like, "What's that there to teach me?" I was like, "Oh, that's my dad's behavior that would bother me too. Okay, that's here to teach me that there is still some piece of healing that I get to, like, show up and heal." Um, then the greatest thing is the role of the villain gets to become the disruptor, the breaker of generational patterns, the disruptor of the narrative that's been going down for centuries, the disruptor of systems that no longer work. Like, and I see that with so many systems right now, and we are entering into an age of incredible disruption that's got a lot of fear attached to it. A lot of people have anxiety around what's going on. And when you can allow for disruption, then that also allows you to then and you shift into being in the creator seat. You can acknowledge the disruption and then shift into like, well, what do I get to create from this? And then the role of the hero switches into the role of the coach. The role of the coach has a very clear boundary where they will guide, they will support, they will mentor, but they will not step in and do the work for you. They will not swoop in and save the day. They believe that, and I say this as a coach, you are fully capable of healing yourself, doing the work yourself, getting the support you need yourself. And that's not me empowering you. That's me already seeing you as empowered to be able to show up for yourself.
Mm. No, and that's brings me to mind. I'm actually trying to pull it up as we speak. And I think it's narrative therapy
Mm.
because it talks about, I mean, and I love what you said. Okay. And I love how you started us off with storytelling, right? I'm a huge traditional storyteller now. And it took me going through, so NADAC, and this is the coat that I'm wearing, National Association for Alcohol and Drug Abuse Counselors. I'm a member of them. Now, they're not a part of this show at all. They don't sponsor, or not sponsor, or anything of that sort. They don't approve or disapprove of it. Um, well, anyways, I learned about traditional storytelling at their annual conference in Seattle in October, which I enjoyed the heck out that drive. I ain't gonna lie. It was an amazing opportunity to go, and an amazing experience just throughout that traveling. Got to see parts of the country I ain't never seen before, and I'd love to do it again. Right. So, but narrative therapy talks about some of the main principles of you're not defined by your problems. There are multiple paths that are possible. You co create your path with your therapist, and you get to reauthor your story. And by reauthoring your story, it empowers your choice.
Mhm.
So, again, we're talking about, that living authentically, right? I love what Viktor Frankl says in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, because
I
he
was just
talks
thinking
about
about that.
right, right. So all of this stuff really goes, goes hand in hand with one another. And I don't think people really understand that.
Mhm.
Like it is huge because as you were sharing, I was thinking about all of that stuff, and then you also shared something too. Makes me think about something else, and it sounds like you're kind of maybe similar personal reflection questions that I typically like to ask when I'm bothered. Right? I hate to look at self, but I have to. What about me is something I don't want to change that is annoying the mess out of me about this person.
Mhm.
You know, this person's whatever's annoying me is something I've got the same thing going on with me. I just have to figure it out. Right. And a lot of times when I am annoyed by things, it's 99% of the time, it's usually something I don't want to change about me. But when I do change that about me, or at least I acknowledge it, as you said, I have a sense of freedom. I have a sense of, okay, you know what? You can go be a dummy all day. I don't care. I'm a dummy too. I'm right there with you. But like
Mhm.
I get that sense of like that the internal calm, that internal peace, that voice just goes from doing this right here just to, just not even yapping anymore. And it's a phenomenal experience.
Mhm. It's that but between stimulus and response, there's a choice. There's a gap. There's a choice, and that's your freedom to choose. I referenced that quote in my TED Talk because that was such a powerful belief system. That was one of the first ones that I was ever presented with. So when I was 17, I dropped out of college 2 weeks before I was supposed to start with 2 scholarships to go to an acting class because I went to this one class and I saw that people were actually feeling, not pretending to feel, not faking it, but feeling. And I didn't know how to fucking feel. I knew how to hide what I was feeling. I knew how to put a mask on. I knew how to say I was fine when I wasn't. I knew how to act in all the right places, but I was pretending I wasn't actually being. And the definition of acting by Lee Strasberg, no, not Lee Strasberg, Sanford Meisner,
Mm.
is living truthfully under imaginary circumstances. Now, isn't that also the definition for potentially manifestation of like what are the imaginary circumstances that you would love to live it through? What is the truth of the identity that you would love to have that you don't currently feel like you're operating in? And how can you bridge that gap so that you can feel more of what it is that you want to feel? And I remember walking into this acting class and getting handed, this my workbook to like start the training. And in it, there's a box on this book, and it says, "This book is the most important book that you'll ever read in your entire life." And I was like, "Pff, habits? what does that have to do about with acting when Hollywood and theater? Because that was my dream initially, was to live and work and become like the female Clint Eastwood. And the book was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And as I'm reading, it was my first personal development book ever. I'd never heard of personal development before, but I started reading it and I got to the point and I was like, I'm the A student, so I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna read the whole reading list. Like, I'm gonna read the whole I'm gonna take notes. I'm gonna, if there's a test, I will be ready for it." And I'm going through the book and I'm reading this and I'm like, I remember this one spot where it was like, your emotions don't have to dictate your reality. And I was like, what? Like, because as someone who grew up with an addict, your emotions are always dictating your reality. Your emotions, you're allowing yourself to be the victim of your emotions, not actually your conscious choice. And I tell you, like, I still default from time to time as a parent because I'm like, "Whoo, there's there's an emotion and I want to lean in, but I'm not going to." And there is that conscious choice of choosing because especially with being a parent, you're seeing constantly your own reflected in your kids. But that was the cracking open initially, and then through the 4 years that I trained there and studied in acting, while also pursuing my screenwriting career, I understood story. I got to understand what it was like to actually feel in a scene and not pretend like I was feeling and not pretend like I was being fine and not pretend to be angry, but I actually got to, like, really let myself be angry, and I got to let myself cry, and without the shame or the stigma that came along with tears that would I grew up with. And that's a huge opening and awakening, I think, for a lot of people because we've the conditioning to your point of you should feel this way, you should feel this way. Um, or it's fine when you're like, no, it's clearly not. Or you're okay, like being told that. That's one that we definitely work on not saying in our household is like noticing our children's big feelings and just acknowledging, like, oh, you're feeling some big feelings right now, aren't you? Rather than be like, it's no, you're okay. You're okay. You're going to be okay. Like, because that's what that is it's gaslighting their experience. And it's not malicious, it's not intentional, but it it is, and it's trying to be, to create ease
Mm,
in their experience, but it's not actually acknowledging what's true and real for them. And I think that that's where the learning is when we like I had to start acknowledging the shame that I had. I had to start acknowledging and recognizing and looking at the guilt, the sadness, the fear, the anger that I felt, like deep anger, and letting it be okay to have those feelings.
mm,
There's a uh there's a bias that's developed with
mm,
kids, especially with in in the world, because our subconscious mind is very much like a toddler. And so, because it's formed between the age of 0 and 7, so it's a young kid. It's not it's going on and it wants things to be fair. I mean, if you've ever hung out with a kid and they're like, "That's not fair," like, that's your subconscious mind. And what happens is we start to form what's called a just world bias where when crap happens in our lives, and it does, and it will because life is going to life. And sometimes it's not always going to go like you want. And especially when you have truly deeply unfair things happen to you and you are a victim of experiences as a child that you had no control over as a child,
mm,
there is a difference between being a victim of an experience and being and holding on to a victim mindset. And that's the biggest one to separate, and the hardest one to separate for me was recognizing the experiences, and many of the experiences in which I grew up in with an alcoholic and an addict, like, that was I was a victim of experience. I didn't know that it's not appropriate to have your dad wandering around in his underwear drinking a scotch while you're on a play date. Didn't know that. Like, that was weird for me. I was like, "Oh, why don't friends wanna come over to my house for a second time?" "Oh, it's because my dad would answer the door like that." Like, just not
mm,
aware. And it's not that he was bad, like, he was operating from his subconscious mind of him having abuse, of him experiencing life in the way that he experienced it. And in recognizing that's how our subconscious mind is playing. So our subconscious mind wants to have what's called a just world bias. And this is why you'll hear people say really dumb things like, especially if a woman like got raped or something and they'll say like, "Oh, well, she shouldn't have been wearing such a provocative outfit." And it's like, "No, dude should not have been a jerk and done that." But that's the just world, but that is literally someone's just world bias kicking in, trying to make sense of something that's nonsensical, trying to make sense of a world that's not always just, it's not always fair. And that's when I had to remedy that, the deepest seated belief that I had to really face was the belief that I deserved it as a child. The belief that I must have been bad, that I must have been a villain of my circumstances. Something must have been wrong so I must have deserved it. I must have been fundamentally flawed. And
Mm.
healing that belief and continuing to heal that belief and allowing for that belief to no longer define my life, but when it pops up from time to time, because life is going to life and it was part of my subconscious programming for so long. Like when I recognize it, saying, "Oh, wow, thank you. Let me just internally picture myself hugging that little 5-year-old girl who doesn't know better, who she's a kid. And let me love on that version of me. Now I look back at the 16, 17-year-old version who was so rebellious, who was so hard on herself, and it's funny because my husband still is like, "Oh my gosh, you're the hardest person on yourself I've ever met." And I'm like, "You have no idea. You did not meet me when I was 16." Like I was so hard on myself. And that's not actually high performing, because when you're super hard on yourself and coming from a place of guilt and shame, it doesn't allow for learning. It gets you stuck in the emotion of guilt and shame rather than actually creating space for progress and growth and acknowledging your mistake and saying, "Oops, yeah, I messed up. Okay, let's continue on." Um, and course correct and pivot a lot faster. But when we get stuck and mired in guilt and shame because of some old belief system, and that just world bias kicks in of like, "Oh, well, that's not fair. So how did I make it happen then? What was wrong about me? I must have created that circumstance for whatever reason." And being able to navigate that is where a lot of the healing gets to take place. And so once I started to feel it to heal it, then came the questioning. But I couldn't start the questioning until I started the feeling. I had to start allowing myself to actually feel what I was feeling and not shaming myself for feeling bad or feeling upset or feeling defiant or feeling angry.
No, and I think you said, out of everything you said there, I think for me, what I'm taking away from that, and this is what I want, if you're watching or listening to us, please hear what I'm about to say. She said a lot of important stuff. So whatever you take away from that, take away from it, whatever you feel like was needed. This is what I teach on. And so that's why I'm emphasizing this. Again, this is only personal opinion here. But you said allowing myself to feel, and that is key there, because I think a part of recovery is, and I help patients understand this, right? Like I teach this, whether it's one on one or even in group, is, listen, when we feel a certain type of way or we're thinking, right? Like we're biologically wired to think and feel like this, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of what have you. We're biologically wired to think and feel. The problem is, right? Here's the issue. I'm afraid when I shouldn't be afraid, right? Like there's not a lion behind me, and I think you can see it, right? Like there's not a lion behind me, and it's like, I'm afraid. I've shared about this when I've spoken, when I do speaking engagements, right? I share about this where I'm afraid to talk to a beautiful woman, right? Like if I see a gorgeous woman, I'll be just in my head, and I'm afraid to go up to her and say, "Hey, I think you're cute," or "I think you're beautiful." Like we're afraid when we shouldn't be afraid. Only thing she's gonna say is yay or nay. Okay, yeah, call me or not call me. I mean, it's neither here nor there. It's not life critical stuff, right? We become conditioned based on experiences, and part of recovery is undoing that condition so that I'm not afraid because there's not a lion behind me. versus I'm afraid and there's a rattlesnake right there. You see what I'm saying? Like, and this, and I'm happy when I need to be happy, right? And as you said, we're going to be triggered in recovery, right? Doesn't matter if you're eating disorders, substance use, suicide prevention, or suicide related, like whatever your mental health is, whatever your struggle is, we're going to be triggered. And the key to successfully, I think, coping with that is allowing ourselves to go through that process and have that experience and reflecting on that experience. Viktor Frankl said it best. I can't make this up, right? And if he's one of my favorites. I love him to death, right? There's only a few people I will put on the level of Viktor Frankl where I will worship the ground they freaking walk on, anything they want. Absolutely, your wish is my command. I'll jump over the Atlantic Ocean for you if need be. I'll figure it out. I'll get the best scientists together and figure out how to make me jump over the Atlantic Ocean in one jump. Okay, just one leap. Don't care. Without even touching the water, I'll figure it out. Like there's only a few people I put on his level, but he shared about the need to talk to identify hope, meaning uh through our experiences in life.
Mhm.
And you also shared about that. You also shared, and part of that goes back to, when something's happening, I just take a breath. I take a deep breath. I relax. I sit back and I ask myself, what is this teaching?
Mm.
And if I can do that, you know, because my feelings are telling me something, my body is telling me something, I have to learn how to listen to myself. And if I can't listen to myself, uh, what is there a need for me to build relationships with people? Uh, Elisa said this, Miss Elisa, she's amazing young lady. I mean, just freaking, just absolutely an amazing young lady. We've had her on our show twice, and she's just been, I mean, just a star. And she talks about the need that our relationship is the most important relationship we're ever going to have with, when compared to all relationships. And unfortunately and fortunately, the last relationship I have is with myself.
Mhm.
So you said it perfectly. You said it best. I have to learn how to listen to self.
Yeah. I mean, it's in my book that's coming out later this year, called Rule Your Body. It's really about like bulimia, anorexia, any sort of body dysmorphia. The hard part is you can't divorce yourself from your body. Divorce is from your body is actual death. Like you may be able to there it's I find it interesting that there is the repetition of divorce, and that for most people at their second marriage and then their third, it's the time frame gets shorter and shorter, typically, not always. That's not the case with me and my husband, but typically. And it's because the lessons, and unless you fix what's inside, unless you shift how you are projecting into the world, then the relationship that you get will mirror your subconscious. And what I find really interesting, and I live by one very simple principle of that which is conscious manifests unhappily, or that which is conscious manifests happily, that which is unconscious manifests unhappily. That very simple principle of that which is conscious manifests happily, and that which is unconscious manifests unhappily allows for me to take the captain's seat of my life and say, as soon as something unhappy comes up where I'm like, oh, I'm getting frustrated, or oh, I'm getting this, allowing me to look at like what is this here to teach me? How, and my question, I love the question that you asked. Um, and I've asked this of many of my clients, and I pre-frame it with letting them know, like, this is a question. I'm going to ask it of you in your shittiest moment, in the time that you feel the worst, and in the time that is like awful. I literally asked this after one of my clients' father passed away in our session. And I said, you're going to want to punch me in the face, but I need to ask you this. And she said, what? And I said, how is this the best thing that ever happened to you? And it puts things into context. Because so often our fear-based brain will wanna go into, like, this is the worst thing. It's all here's all the sadness, here's all the shame, here's all the anger, here's all the grief, here's all the stuff that we could experience. And she took a moment and she said, "Well, it's the best thing because he's out of pain." I said, "Okay, that's one." And she said, "Well, it's the best thing because I now don't have to express myself how he would want me to express myself. I get to actually fully express who I wanna be." And there's a gift that comes when you lose a caregiver, um, that's a hard one, but I noticed it when I lost my father. Um, it's the expectations of who you had to be for that person suddenly are no more. And I'm not saying, like, cut your family off from the rest from and never speak to them again. I am saying there's a permanence that comes with death, and for me, uh, having experienced, suicide in our family, having experienced not my dad, but, his brother, and my dad was put in the VA for suicidal ideations, about 6 months after that happened, and then seeing the struggle and myself having my own battles with, postpartum anxiety or postpartum depression, um, what I've noticed is that every time those feelings come up, it's a side of who we thought we had to be to survive stripping away. And it's hard because suddenly that's part of our identity and it's what we've known. But there's a hermetic principle that talks about dying every day. Now, I don't mean actually taking your life. And obviously, like you prefaced at the beginning, if there's any sort of ideations, like please go call someone and get help. But the those feelings come up when there is a piece of you, of your ego, that is literally dying. And I told this to my husband in recently, just a few months ago, as I was like, I feel like a part of me, like because I have a 10-month-old baby girl. And I said, I feel like a part of me is just like a dying, like it's die. And like it was frustrating because I was like, what is this shift, this portal that I'm in where who I have been is gone. It's no longer that. And so you're not left in limbo because you are constantly alchemizing and embodying, but it's almost like taking off a really tight turtleneck. If you've ever worn an outfit and I know speaking this as as a girl, well, I've worn an outfit that's probably too tight a few times to where you're like trying to take it off and it's like it's almost suffocating, but you need to take it off because you got to go to bed or whatever, but you're trying to take it off and it's like sticking to you. And that's what our ego is and our identity is of who we thought we had to be in certain relationships. And when we can allow ourselves to strip that old identity or what I call plagiarized programming away of who we thought we had to be for this person and allow ourselves to check in and like, who do I actually want to be? Who do I actually want to become? How is this person allowing me to step into another boundary? How is this person allowing me to step into a greater responsibility? Because one of the paradoxes of freedom, it does come with responsibility, but it doesn't mean that responsibility is necessarily a burden, but responsibility, I mean, Freud said it, like freedom comes with responsibility. And that's why a lot of people don't actually want freedom. They want control. They want someone to tell them what to do. They want a savior outside of them. But when you realize that you have what it is inside of you that you can source and heal and transform, and that's part of why we came here to this planet to do that, and in doing that, we get to be that light for someone else who's going through that's power right there.
Wow. I couldn't have said it any more beautiful than that. Like you 100%. 100%. Responsibility is not a bad thing. It's not a negative thing. It just means I have to make decisions and I have to live in freedom and all of these other things. I got to be adult. And granted, I don't want to adult every single day. No, I want to be 12 again. I want to be 12. I don't want to adult today. Just let me stay home. I don't want to go to work.
Mhm.
Right? But I love what 12-step programs teach is when we claim dependence upon a power greater than ourselves, we actually live in a sense of independence, right? And I'm not going to get spiritual here by any means, right? Or religious by any means, but think about that. It's exactly everything we've been talking about, right? It's embodying a sense of look, my favorite word, authenticity. Authenticity and freedom that, yes, I get that, right? I don't have to buy black because of, my family likes black. I can go buy a red Ford because I like red. I don't have to agree with everything that such and such says. Absolutely not. I get to at least, express myself in my relationships with people and be okay with it. And it comes through experiencing, getting to that. Like we don't just wake up and boom in a vacuum and just right there I'm living authentically. No, it took me 22 years to live authentically. I was talking the other day and as you said, triggers, right? Talking the other day, last weekend, actually this past weekend, I think it was. And somebody started going off and I'm just, I say going off, like not arguing or whatever, but like they were just started digressing, going into a different and started being, very negative. So what did I do? Put the boundary up. Absolutely not. I disagree with this. This is why I agree with the decisions that blah blah blah, so on and so forth. Point A, point B, point C, point D. Thank you very much. Can we change the discussion now? Can we change topics real quick? Uh, and I did that. Right. I put the boundary up. I maintained it. Moved over here. And we carried on the conversation. Right. And that's literally what we've been talking about all episode, right? It's that self-healing, it's that healing, that self-reflection. And so are we still gonna be broken 100%? But at least we're better off. We're not living in active bulimia, active addiction, active this, active that. We're living in the state of inactive, mental health or inactive. I think remission is another word you can use.
I hate the word recovery because I got into a big disagreement with the eating disorder world on this one a while back, uh, because I remember the moment that I was 22. I had spent the past 2 years basically in remission and in full recovery, and I remember the moment because I was in Miss California, and I didn't starve myself, I wasn't forcing myself, I, like, truly built my body into a body that I loved and was proud of and respected, and not by force or controlling or any of the other mediums that I had leveraged in the past. And I'm there in front of 4,000 people going on stage in a bikini. And I remember walking out onto that stage and I heard the crowd and I was so proud of myself. I looked at the like 7 judges down in the dark, and I suddenly like I had this, it wasn't even defiance. It was like I no longer need your approval. Like I don't actually need to win the title. I don't need to have the crown. I crown myself. I've already won. And like that moment was me winning, and since then like there's no relapse, there's no recovery, there's none of that because I am not even the same person.
Mm,
I got into the disagreement because apparently on my life insurance, it still is is a little spot and a little stain from years and years ago, um, when getting approved for insurances and things like that. But the interesting thing is because I told the eating disorder community, I said, look, a butterfly doesn't think, oh my gosh, I'm in recovery from being a caterpillar. A butterfly is like, no, I'm a butterfly. I alchemized, I changed, I transformed. And that identity is no longer who I am.
mm,
Now, can your identity or an addiction switch forms? Yes, it can. For me, it switched into not like physical. I've had 3 beautiful children. I've loved my body through every single one of them. If you had told my 16-year-old self that I'd love myself 50 pounds heavier than I ever was, that like I would have fallen off my chair. But the where it does shift and where it can shift is you can take that same belief system and it can, bar hop. And for me, it hopped into relationships initially and choosing really poor choices as partners. Um, my ex-husband being one of them, who I ran off with in a very big, I joke that I pulled a Britney when I was 22, ran off, got married, and then within 9 months later, I was like, no, no, that was a poor choice. But being able to recognize that and course correct and strip myself of what society said and what I was raised in, was like, no, divorce is not an option. And I was like, no, definitely divorce is an option because I choose not to live the rest of my life miserable. And that this was a poor choice and this was not the right choice for me. And being able to say, like, I deserve better. I'm going to love myself through this. I'm going to love myself through this relationship. And this relationship is not an example of love, it's an example of control. And that's where it got it. So, like, my control issue shifted into me manifesting a controlling partner. And then once I healed through the relationships, the the deeper pattern of deserving showed up in my business. It showed up in my e-commerce business of deserving how I was treated, deserving how I was being paid. And that ended up with me being bought out of that company and like really standing up and fighting for myself. And then that manifested into that same belief system uh, manifested into what I call financial bulimia. And I see this with a lot of entrepreneurs, and a lot of entrepreneurs have had like mental health stuff because it's very common. We're the innovators, we're the visionaries, and it's very common. And to see ADHD, like pretty much all of my clients have some level of neurodiversity. ADHD is like runs the gambit for entrepreneurs. And it was in seeing those behaviors coming up again that I looked at money and I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm ingesting revenue and then bleh, it goes out to OpEx and there's no profit, there's no sustainability." So that got to be healed as well. And now going through that in multiple cycles and seeing how each time the pattern showed up a little differently in some area, but it's still those patterns, those underlying patterns of control, of deserving, of holding your boundaries. And that's why just as you evolve, like you may notice there are certain things that will stay with you for a lifetime, but it's not necessarily the addiction necessarily, but it can be an underlying pattern or belief system. And that's why the constant desire for excavation needs to be present. And that's why I live by that one simple principle of that which is conscious manifests happily and that which is unconscious manifests unhappily. When something unhappy manifests in my reality, I'm like, oh, well, how did I create this? Like, what do I believe? Like, what is the belief system that's driving this? How is this actually a problem? Like, what am I making this problem mean for me as to why it's activating me? And once you process through that, you'll face problems a lot faster. Like it just cuz you go through treatment or go through recovery doesn't mean that you're never going to face a problem again. Just cuz you're healed doesn't mean you're never going to face a problem again. You're still alive. Like we're still in this human school. But when we can approach it from, okay, well, how did I create that? Okay, well, what's coming up in my subconscious is allowing me to change. Great. Okay, cool. Awesome. Now I get to alchemize this. Now I get to shift this. Now I get to really look at this, dive through that eye of the needle. Okay, that sucked for a minute, but you know what? It's a lot easier than healing up a gangrenous wound that we just choose to ignore and avoid and escape from and numb until it's a festering gangrenous wound where really we just need to rip off the band-aid and maybe apply a stitch.
I love it. I love it. No, and you're right. I think, healing. There's so many ways to heal, and to each her or his own path, right? And what I hope people are getting from this is that when you recover or in the recovery process, right? I know you hate the word recover. I know you hate it, but I have to use it, right? I have to. In the
I
healing
complete
process.
I understand why
Yeah.
it's used. I understand its purpose. Um, and I fully appreciate the word in in the context of the healing process.
Yeah.
But it's one of the reasons why I've never identified as, uh, an abuse survivor. Like, because when we identify as a survivor, it's constantly linking us to our past identity.
No, 100%. Like, and that's why I always say, I mean, there's so many things, right? Like when the verbiage we use is critical, you know, and I have been a loud disadvocate of the brain disease model of addiction because I hate it. I hate it. I pure hate it. And people don't understand the dopaminergic theory. They don't. And scientists have failed epically, and researchers have failed epically to explain it. And many people, lay people and therapists alike, don't understand what is actually being said in the dopaminergic theory. And so I'm like you, there's certain things I dislike.
What is the theory? This is the I have not heard of this theory.
So this
Please,
is my
please,
homework assignment to you then.
I love it.
Okay.
You may
Go and
have to
research
spell
the
it for me.
dopaminergic theory. So go and research the dopaminergic theory. Uh, current people have for the last decade and some change has said that the brain disease model of addiction or all that substance use falls under a brain disease.
Mhm.
I disagree, 100%. Not everything can be explained by 100% of the brain. If that be the case, how come 90% of the nicotine receptors are neck down?
Mm. It's kind of like
So,
the book, Waking the Tiger by Dr. Peter Levine about how to healing
yep,
trauma,
yep, yep,
and, the body keeps a score.
yep,
Yeah, 'cause the
yeah.
the the body is run by the subconscious mind.
No, 100%. And so that's why I believe in existentialism and everything that we've
Mhm,
spoken about today goes back into storytelling, narrative therapy. Existentialism is looking at our own experience versus what society says must be, right?
mhm.
And so that really brings us to, I want to say brings us to closer to the end here. And uh, I want to ask you a few questions, some of our most favorite questions, because I can keep going down this rabbit hole with path with you. Like it's been an amazing show. Okay, it's been an amazing show. So listen, folks, this isn't the end of this one. Okay, I want to preface that it's not the end. She's coming back. Okay, but we also have to be mindful of time because we can't spend the whole evening talking about eating disorder, addiction, the brain disease model. She's got a homework assignment,
I
and
do.
so do y'all. So, right. Uh, Listen, if there's anybody who's watching this or listening to it, what is one thing you hope they take away?
The power of ownership. Like, truly the power of, like, when you ownership is not blame. It is not self-blame, and it's not external blame on other people. Ownership is saying, "I accept that this is where I'm at. It is what it is. Here are the facts of the experience, and now what?" how do I get to create the reality that I want from this launching pad? How do I get to create what I want to feel, the life I want to lead, the relationships that I want to have, the love I want to invite into my world, the businesses, the career that I want to enjoy? How do I get to create from this launching pad? It's not deflection, it's not avoidance, it's ownership is your starting line. And I say this now as a marathon runner, having run now 6 marathons in 3 halves, from going from an exercise-induced asthmatic, to shifting my identity into one who is able to run marathons. That you don't run a marathon looking at mile 25. You run it you don't run it from the sidelines of cheering on mile 25 and saying, "Okay, now I'm here." No, 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 you gotta start where you're at. Own your circumstances for where you're at, and then you get to mile 1, and then you get to mile 2, and eventually you will cross that finish line, so long as you just keep going. That is how you make your success inevitable in any way, shape, or form with whatever battle you're facing, with whatever fear you're conquering.
Oh,
Y you own where you're at, what's going on presently, and now what? How do you get to shift it consciously?
absolutely. That was powerful right there. So powerful. Wow. And as you were talking, I just had this sense of just kind of calm just come over because I love the way you just worded like that was beautiful. What is your call to action to people?
As in what context?
Any context you wanted
Like,
to
to
so
follow
you're
me or to,
it
like,
can
to
be
go do
anything.
something
It
amazing
could
with
be
your life?
that. It could be right, right. I mean, it could be anything. I've had people do their call to action as far as following them on social media, buying their books, doing this, doing that. Like, I mean, it could be anything. I've had people go, say, um, go make change in the world, go advocate for such and such, go do this, go do that.
I mean, if you love this episode and you want to connect, then head on over to crownyourself.com/podcast for more resources like this and conscious ways to shift your own story. And if you want to connect personally, then head on over to Instagram.com/Kimberly.Spencer and just drop me a DM. And I'd love to talk to you.
Absolutely. That actually was going to be my last question to you. Where can people find you at? Wow. All right. So let me ask you this last and most important question, I think. Where can they buy your book?
Ah, which one?
All of them. Is it Amazon? Like, give us some
So
ideas.
you
Give us
can
some
go to
hint.
Amazon for sure. The Start is available. That's on the journey to entrepreneurship. It's a multi-author book. My bestseller, award winner, Make Every Podcast Want You. If you're like, I want to get on more podcasts, I want to learn how to share my story, I want to better tell my story, I want to learn how to shift my story internally and share it with other people and use it to serve. That's the book for you. And if you have kids and you just want to giggle, then you can go to itsjustafart.com and get that our children's book. My goal personally is to release one book every year for the next 13 years. So I'm 2 for 13 now. This year we're releasing Rule Your Body, which is all about how I shifted my story with bulimia and my body into fully, deeply, 100% loving myself and crowning myself and loving the skin that I am in, no matter the size, shape, clothes I wear. And you can head on over to crownyourself.com. We don't even have the website up yet because it was just literally last night that I said, "Okay, that's the book that needs to come out." It was already written. I started writing it back in 2016,
Good.
but that's the book that is coming. I was debating on what book needed to come out for 2026, and it's been 10 years in the making, but I haven't touched it in 9. And that one last night, I was at dinner with a client of mine, and that one came through as very much the one that needs to come out this year. So stay tuned for Rule Your Body. It's coming out this year.
I love it.
And now I've said it on a podcast, so it actually has to come out.
I love it. I love it. Wow. Wow. Listen, folks. Y'all have heard it first. Y'all have heard it loud and clear. And she's got a lot that we can talk about. And listen, I enjoy meeting people on here. I enjoy doing what we do. Um, and yes, like this isn't just the end. No, no, this is the beginning right here. Because this right here can be 15 episodes. Like, I mean, I can keep going till 8 o'clock tonight talking to her, but we have to cut it off. Okay. We have to. We have to. I am a talker. I got 1,000 questions. I got 1,000. Every time she's saying something, I'm like, oh, I can pick that off. Oh, pick that off. Oh, pick this off. Oh, hold on. I need to pick that off. Like, my brain is just working. So, thank you for being on. Thank you for agreeing to come on for I mean, that's first and foremost, and thank you for being a part of our journey and breaking stigmas, breaking barriers. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it, and I really do believe in what you're shifting generational narratives, and I mean, I look at my kids and I'm like, they're gonna get to live in this world for a long time. And I look forward to them living in one where they get to create their own story. And so thank you for helping show other people how they can create their own story.
Thank you, ma'am.